He treated me like a little sister. He
Tell
really
me,
did.
tell me.
Oh no, you couldn't do that to Stan. He was always his own man. Look, he was able to convince his mother to let him become adopted by a strange man, and because his talent was so great,
Yeah.
she gave. I don't know how she put up with it, but she was very proud of him. And oh no, Stan was able to divide his problems and me, for example. That doesn't mean only me; it means other people as well. He was able to do that until he probably overdosed a bit, and then he was obviously into that. But the Stan I know, as funny as can be, and he was, I say, very, very good. Yes, he was kind of a little bit in love with me, but not in the sense that you would like to think. A lot of musicians love me because I was just in it for the music, and they bought that. They didn't need me. There were plenty of girls around following these guys. They certainly didn't get very far with me.
No, but can you? I would love you to tell me a story, like his sense of humor. Could you tell a specific
Oh
story?
well, okay. Little. Then from there in Norway, we went to a skiing. And I'm laughing thinking about it. A skiing resort with the kids, all of them. And Monica, and of course Monica being Monica, she could ski perfectly, and I was a rotten skier, but I skied better than Stan. And Stan got on the skis, and of course he was famous there, so the press was there already, so ridiculous. And Stan stood up on the skis and promptly fell down, flat on his stomach. And then from that position, he was saying, "Stop it, you sensational people! You stop your photographing me!" It looked so ridiculous.
The
No,
paparazzi.
paparazzi. His skis were on him, and he couldn't get up, of course, but he was yelling from the ground up, and it just struck everybody kind of funny, and not him though. He didn't see me laughing. I wouldn't be alive today if he did. But anyway, after that, we did go in. It was Christmas. After that, we went into the hotel that we were staying at, and all the kids were there, and Stan and I were there, and they started playing Christmas music, and we started dancing around the Christmas tree, holding hands, circling around the Christmas tree, and he said, "Helen, do you notice anybody from Downbeat here? I hope they're not here watching this." And he just couldn't resist. He just saw a lot of humor in lots of things. I think his coming into drugs really was the time, the era. It seems so many people were doing that, and Stan, unfortunately, was one.
Talking to Helen Merrill here on Power Talk 1210. Going back to the East Bronx, can you talk about that kind of upbringing that Stan had? As far as I know, you didn't live in the same neighborhood.
I didn't know his upbringing. He was already on the road, and his mother lived there. I never met her. There was no reason. I was a kid, I was a teenager myself.
Do you remember the first time you met Stan?
I don't. I was trying to think of that this morning. I don't remember.
What's your first memory of Stan that you do?
Well, the first memories of Stan was always an icon. I mean, he was always the man, Stan the man. I mean, that was not a joke. It's true. He had he was blessed with a talent that was unbelievable. He just picked up that instrument and just played beautifully. I don't know. I know he was well schooled, but I'm not sure. You know more about.
No, actually, he never was. He had some schooling, but never graduated high school. And
that's great, yeah. And I'm glad to hear that. And I was out last night with Carol Sloan, and
sure.
She was at the Y singing here, and Bill Sharp and Sandy Stewart. Now, much to my surprise, Carol told me, she said, "Oh no, I never had lessons. I didn't either. My father wouldn't dream of it. That's not how I learned music. Was by absorption." Yeah. But anyway, Stan, then I'm really surprised to hear that.
So he was Stan the Man. Do you remember what was the first memory you really have of meeting him?
Well, actually, the clear memory was working together. I mean, that was really a joy for me.
Talk about that.
Yeah, it was very relaxed. There was nothing in clubs, and of course some concerts, as I said before, and he really was very, very admired by musicians. There's no doubt about that, and the public. But I think they liked sort of to see him at his not at his best. That was sort of the passatempo, a little bit. So he was aware of that, and he was very careful about trying not to be caught in a situation like that. Although I told you, these people, when they were junkies, and I'm going to call them what they are, they were junkies. When they used to go to alcohol. I mean, because I guess it was very difficult to kick. And there'd be a water glass full of scotch from bottom to top, not only one, and glug, 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 and nothing happened when they drank. So it was a common way to get off the drug, which sounds crazy, but it seems that a lot of them did that.
Were they doing it just to,
Yes.
No, not to actually completely get off of it, but just sort of wean themselves?
No, that's why I said yes. They were doing it to get off of it. They were trying their best to get off. They really were.
Can you unpack this idea that he was admired by musicians, but they preferred to see him when he wasn't at his best? Can you just talk about
Well, because he had a couple of personalities, and one of them don't. Musicians used to turn their back on him on stage. But the thing is this, he could be very cruel. Really, really very cruel.
Can you give an example?
Not really. I know that musicians would complain about him, and that didn't. One time, when we came back from Europe, and I had no idea why, I walked into the dressing room, and we were in New York already, and he started screaming at me and yelling at me and sort of nothing that he ever said to me before. And funny, I didn't take offense because I knew already that he could do that. So it wasn't. But I was just shocked. He would really turn to another person, to become another person. Yes, he really did. But you can't do that all the time and play the way he played. I sang at his funeral thing, and it was really a good job. I think I got a lot of compliments for it. I guess it was very hard for me to do because I really loved Stan.
Putting the drugs aside, because I mean, he came up as you did, even though you were not into any drugs. I mean,
no.
Was it if you weren't a junkie, you weren't necessarily trusted. And I'm curious about this idea.
No, wait, you just said if you weren't what was that sentence?
Well, from the generation that, with Teagarden and the Four Brothers and Charlie Parker and Bebop.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is there was an unspoken thing where if you weren't a junkie, then you were not trusted because you were not part of the club.
No, that is not a way it was. The junkies, they never gathered together. They were so busy looking for a fix. That's all they thought about. I think that I think that most of them probably would have loved to have never started, and it was not a club, that's for sure.
Yeah.
They were a lot of them. They were in deep trouble, and their music suffered as a result. And certainly Charlie Parker, and here's another thing, he was horrified by the thought that the kids were following him as a junkie. He really didn't like that, and that was not his mission.
It's interesting. That's a very interesting point.
Yes.
Can you going back? Did you play before Europe? Did you play with Stan? Did you play gigs with Stan in the States, in New York?
I think I did, but it was with it was in small clubs. But wait a minute now. I guess maybe it was in California in what's his name's club? The drummer, wonderful drummer.
Shelly Manne.
Yeah, Shelly Manne. Yeah, I worked with him there, but I think he was just sitting in. And Shelly, I didn't have any money or work when I came from Europe, and Shelly gave me a job every weekend at his manhole, and Stan used to come and sit in. So, and really, and everybody was there. Bill Evans and all those people used to work for.
Wow.
Oh yeah, for Shelly. Shelly was a sweetheart. There's no way to really hang out with junkies. Really very hard thing to do. And those stories were. I mean, look what happened to Bill Evans, for God's. I knew Bill when he was Bill, and he was part of the Bronx people. He was a New Yorker. He was a very nice kid. He was in my age, a little, maybe a year or two older, but he called me the night before he went with Miles, and he was clean, totally clean. And he said, Helen, do you think I'm good enough to play with Miles? I said, are you kidding? Yes, definitely, yes. But, yeah, that's really. But, I mean, he somehow became one of those people and ruined his life as well,
Can you talk? I mean, you spent a lot of quality time with Stan, just endearing friends.
Oh yes,
as friends.
absolutely.
I mean, can you talk about what I know enough about Stan is to know that he had some immortal talents on the bandstand, but he was very insecure and sensitive as well inside about who he was. Can you talk about what was inside this man and what?
I think that was the beautiful part of Stan. I think a lot of us have that insecurity. But that, I think, is the soulful part that comes out in his playing. And I never did know enough about his private life, but where he was brought up was definitely not a palace place. It was in a part of the Bronx that was not the greatest. Well, it was in the days when they didn't have gangs and things like that, but it was a poor area. And so he was obviously brought up. I don't know if he had a dad, did he?
He did, but one of the reasons he was out on the road so early was because he was making a lot of money and supporting his family. His dad was out of work a lot.
Oh, for God's sake! Now I know even more about his soul. Yeah, well, of course. Yeah, he loved me, and I mean as a real love, as a sister. And his kids loved me too. And the kids went to the same school together. Well, the boys did. And Monica was in on it at that time. Well, I don't remember when she came in on it. Oh, but she was really very. She tried to teach everybody everything, which must have been driving him crazy. Eating manners. And it's the crazy stuff. So anyway, she probably was bossy with him. I'm pretty sure, because he was very angry with her for some reason. I don't know. That's private.
Can you go? I really am interested. I know you didn't grow up in the same part of the Bronx, but
no.
What did he? Can you talk about what he used to talk to you about his upbringing?
No, he did not.
But how do you know that? How do you know that it was a tough neighborhood and there were no gangs and I guess.
How do I know? Because I know the area. Because Aaron, my future husband, lived there. His mother owned a building there on that same few streets from a few buildings from Stan's mother. They didn't have that. There were a lot of Jewish families there, and they were there. Their interest was, bringing their children up well. And that was before neighborhoods turned lethal. Absolutely. But the park was there. Where the animals are, the Bronx Zoo, and I used to walk there in the carriage with my baby. And there was no fear. You fear the animals. One escaped once when I was there.
Absolutely. No, I mean, Stan was, that's the thing. His loft was so incredibly hot. He would be outside with his brothers swimming in the lakes, and doing.
Oh, I never heard that. I don't know. That's interesting for me to hear. He had a brother?
He had a brother, Bob, yeah. And so I'm just trying to get at this idea that, well, first of all, talk about what made him. If you could compare Stan to any artist in another medium, who would you compare him to, and what were his talents that separated him from just your normal jazzer?
Picasso? I don't know. I mean, he had several personalities, Stan, and I don't know what separated him was what God gave him, what was inside of him. He was already formed when he was very young. He was already Stan Getz.
He was already formed. You mean he already had
his talent and his personality, his strong personality. But you say inside of all artists, there's a little person that is not secure. And I didn't think of Stan that way, but in fact, you're right. He did have, yes, I don't know, he was loved by musicians, so not all of them, because he'd be kind of critical, you know.
No, you're. I mean, listen. Why do you think he was in? I mean, you say it's inside every artist, but for Stan in particular, why was he insecure, in your opinion?
Well, you know, because the fear that you are not really who you think you are, the imposter. There was a book written, of course, of the imposter, and all of us feel that inside somewhere, you really shouldn't be as great as you are, or as great as you think you are. But it's not. It's not a. It's not the force that pushes you, but it's there somewhere. And I didn't. I didn't see that in Stan, though. I really didn't. I think he was always very sure of himself. Well,
Were you able to remember some of the cats you played with in Denmark? Some of
yes, I will be able to. There was a great pianist. You know, I don't. Schupfo was a drummer. He was a great drummer. In fact, helped a lot of Jews go. They made a path underground, and he was one of the underground people who brought a lot of the Jews from terror and into the country. So, and the piano player was Johnson. What's his name? Johnson. Oh my God.
It's all right. No, you said Chuck Flores. Flores?
No. He was a wonderful man who died young, unfortunately. Wonderful pianist.
No, I'm talking about the drummer who built the.
The drummer Schupfo. What's his last name? Schupfo. How to spell that? I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, that if you talk to anybody who is knowledgeable, they would know who he was. And the piano player there was fabulous player, wonderful. Stan loved him, and I did too. In fact, I came across a recording that was ripped off, when we were working there, and I can give you those names later in online.
Absolutely. No, I want to. I'm getting at the. Was it? Can you talk about the tunes you were playing? Was it bebop? Where were you at in your what kind of music?
Oh, I started with bebop. I started with all those. In fact, I married my husband as a teenager because I thought he was a bebopper. He had a bebop cap and a little. Whiskers underneath, and that was a sure sign of a bebop player. And he played, my God, he played with a big-time band with Benny Goodman. And that was like, goodness, look, I'm getting into the big time just by knowing Aaron Sachs. That was not the truth, but still I thought that way. And it was definitely bebop, yes.
And so
from day one, yes.
Yeah, I mean, on the band, when you were on the bandstand with Stan, what was magical about that?
I'll tell you what was magical. He understood the depth of the way I approached music, and I of course always understood how he approached music, and somehow that would marry, and once in a while, and he just he was very sensitive to the other musicians who also had the problem of I don't know how to say this, of expressing themselves through their lives. Yes. And he had that. If you're a talented person and you were able to express yourself, in those days too, the only thing you had to be was an individual. If you were not an individual, you were no good, and you were not part of the club. So, I mean, I always was an individual, but because I was brought up without any lessons as well, my mother was a great, great singer, but for her own, I would never be able to sing in a nightclub if my mother had not passed on to other things. I don't know. That was it. He just recognized that in me, and I think a lot of people did, including Quincy Jones, and that's how I recorded with Clifford.
That's right. Well, I mean, that's talking to a star. When you say you had to be an individual, music.
Oh, absolutely. In your concept of whatever it was you were doing, yes.
How can you give an example of how Stan knew where you were coming from?
Oh no, just playing together. He didn't know. He felt it.
He felt it.
Oh yeah. No, you just feel things. You don't say, "Hey, hello, I came from." No. No. He was a very soulful guy, very soulful. And the other part, he had to protect that other person that was inside of him, of course. Everybody, and he had to. He didn't come from an easy background.
How do you know?
Well, you just told me about his brother and his father wasn't there and so on. That's how I know.
Can you talk about him? You said you were very close with his children. Can you talk about Stan as a father?
He was a great. Oh, he was married to somebody else before.
Yeah, Beverly. Beverly Getz. He had
Oh
three.
my God, yes.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. Anyway, that was a disaster for him and her, and oh Lord, I forgot about that. Yeah, but we both had children the same age, and we both were musicians, and so we worked together. We naturally became friendly in that way, family style. That's what we were doing at Christmas time in Norway.
Can you talk about the way did he feel like he was being a good father? I mean, can you talk about him as because
I don't think any musician, including myself, who travels, no matter how wonderful you are to your children, you are not good enough. The kids prefer you in a slum and one-room apartment when they're little to all the glory that you get later on, which it doesn't necessarily even come, But he loved his children. If you see pictures of him with Beverly, you'll see that. And Beverly, his children loved him. I think being, in those days, being married, being a parent to children was very difficult because the money was not great. So you had to figure out how to have a home, a good home, and so on. But Stan, I guess, started to earn enough money for all that in his midlife and onward.
You knew one of the things that's really beautiful about Helen Merrill. I'm pretty sure you knew Stan before he became a pop star with the bossa nova stuff. Is that right?
Oh yes, and yes, but we still remained pals. There was no change in our.
No, I wanted to ask you. Tell me about Stan Getz before, and I already know the answer, but Stan Getz before pop stardom and Stan Getz after, and why did he not let it get to his head?
Oh no, he complained bitterly about her getting the royalties and he not getting them, and it was, and that's what he was upset about. I don't think that he would never be a pop artist anyway. No matter what he played, it was not that. I mean, he just played like Stan, no matter what he did, and he knew how to identify something good in everything he played with.
No, I mean more to the point. Like I know his son Steve said that Stan could never understand why his tunes became pop hits, and even when he became a millionaire, he never really changed his personality. I mean, he was the same guy. And
exactly, that's right.
I guess what I'm saying is, how did he not let it get to his head? I mean, can you explain that personal character?
Because Stan Getz is more important, Stan the man he is, than any other thing that could happen. It's just, yes, and I understand that very well because there's a book written about me in Italy, a young girl doing her, it's wonderful. But she says the cover is the anti-diva, in Italian. And yes, you stay who you are. I feel sorry sometimes for these very, very popular people with all their beautiful homes and lots of money. They always wind up with some kind of drugs or some kind of peculiar following, and I never admired that. I wish I had a lot of money. No, I don't. Yes, I did because I had a kid. That's the reason. But anyway, I don't know. No, Stan never changed because he got a hit record. No.
Okay, so Stan, in your mind, Helen Merrill's mind, what does Stan the man mean as the man? Who was the man?
I don't know. Stan the man. Somebody just made that up. Who was Stan the man? He's the man, we used to say. That's an expression that musicians use for great musician. He plays saxophone. Oh yeah, he's the man.
Oh no, I know, but I mean, you've already used the adjectives. He was a soulful cat. He stayed true to himself. I want you to break down.
He had no choice. That's who he was. It's not as though he could say, "Oh, now I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that." No, he was always Stan. He just got better at being Stan musically. He never changed. He didn't have to change.
Right.
He was already formed when he went with Jack Teagarden. He was already formed.
Can you, for someone like me or anybody listening all over the world, when you say formed, I mean, maybe he had his rudiments down and his chops down, but how was he already formed if he hadn't played on the bandstand relentlessly before he joined Teagarden?
Because he listened a lot, I can assure you, before he joined Teagarden. Teagarden listened to him a lot, too. He was already Stan Getz. That's why Teagarden wanted him. He already, at this young age, he already had such apparent talent. And remember, it's an improvisational talent, so he didn't learn that from anybody. That is a gift. You can't teach that.